What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're jumping in with a quick Destiny 2 video. And in this one we're going to discuss speculation and supposed leaks about the returning raid coming in Season 22. And so if you don't want to know any of the potential details or have the conversation about the returning raid, obviously a spoiler alert is necessary, you may want to skip this, but I think nostalgia is getting the better of me in this one. I absolutely loved the raids in D1, and as we approach Season 22 with a reprised raid coming back, some of the most reliable Destiny leak sources have indicated that the returning raid will be Crota's End. And so, from Destiny Bulletin right here and the Game Post, they shared an article that says the Game Post's Destiny Bulletin reported that the returning raid in Season 22 will be Crota's End. And on top of that, a credible Destiny 2 leaker has corroborated the report, saying that they've received more confirmation that Crota's End will indeed be the reprised raid next season. And so take that with a pinch of salt, it may or may not be the returning raid. Based on the sources right here, I would say there's a good chance that this info is correct, and these sources have reliably given us information in the past, so it's a reasonably good bet that we will get Crota's End, but of course, that does have the potential to change. But from the Game Post's article here, apparently one source for the Game Post indicated that most of the encounters are being reworked in the raid, especially the Abyss Lamp Maze encounter and the Bridge encounter, which are indeed the two first kind of primary encounters for Crota's End. And according to those sources, additionally, Bungie have been testing the return of Crota's End since the release of Witch Queen, and for example in the Lightblade Strike, there's a sequence that has a bunch of lamps that work exactly the same way as the Abyss encounter in Crota's End. And so interesting possibilities right there, and assuming that Crota's End is indeed returning, let's take a bit of a nostalgia trip and talk a little bit about the raid itself. Of course, in Destiny 1 it was always memed on slightly as being a pretty easy raid, firstly. Secondly, it was also quite a cheesable raid. There were numerous different cheeses, some of them pretty much enabling players to skip entire encounters, and I'm talking about the bridge section right here. But for me, and a lot of veteran Destiny 1 players who played that raid a lot, we've got a bunch of fun memories of it, so nostalgia almost takes charge. And of course, if the raid does come back to Destiny 2, we can expect that Bungie will have fixed a lot of the cheese and indeed, as the article suggests, have reworked a lot of the encounters. But in terms of what we can actually earn in the raid, presumably we'll see the return of the Necrochasm auto rifle. So this was the raid exotic. In Destiny 1 there was a quest to acquire it, where we'd initially earn a weapon called Husk of the Pit. This actually dropped in the world. And then there were a few objectives to upgrade it. I think it went to a legendary version as well. And instead of getting the actual exotic weapon to drop, we'd have to get the Crux of Crota to drop from the final boss, which was essentially an upgrade core that would ultimately turn the weapon into an exotic. Of course, in D2 it may simply be a drop, but looking at the perks, kills with the weapon trigger a Cursed Thrall explosion. And as you can see from some of this Destiny 1 gameplay, upon making kills we would get that Cursed Thrall style explosion, which is a pretty cool concept for the weapon. And I'm certainly curious if it does come back to see what Bungie do with it in Destiny 2. Of course, you're looking at D1 gameplay here, so we've got that juicy 30 FPS action going on. But that's the raid exotic, and obviously an easier choice for Bungie in terms of loot, because in Destiny 2 we already have Outbreak Perfected, which is an upgraded version of the Outbreak Prime, which was the Wrath of the Machine raid weapon. So if you're looking at Wrath of the Machine versus Crota's End, obviously Crota's End is a smaller raid. It also doesn't have the unique assets from Siva, and it has a unique exotic weapon that hasn't returned to Destiny 2 yet. So you could see why from a development standpoint, it probably is an easier raid to bring back. But on top of that, we shouldn't forget Destiny 1 had some incredible armor, especially the Age of Triumph versions of them, which were essentially updated versions with glows. And so you can see some of those on the screen right here. If you never used them in D1, they were certainly some of the most popular endgame PvE armor. My absolute favorite set is the Warlocks right here, which looks absolutely incredible. And I would say from the community's standpoint, if Crota's End is to return, there is no way on earth that Bungie could possibly get away with not bringing the versions of these armor pieces that have the glows on them. So I would certainly hope that we would see these versions. And generally speaking, they're just darker, grittier, and more distinct than a lot of the armor we have in Destiny 2, so I would definitely be excited to see these armor pieces come back. But on top of that, there were some other really nice weapons in the Crota's End raid. And so to quickly skim through some of them, firstly there was the Black Hammer, that later became the Black Spindle, which of course was an exotic sniper, and Bungie reprised that as the Whisper of the Worm inside of Destiny 2. So presumably we would get a legendary version of Whisper of the Worm, which is pretty cool. But there was also the auto rifle, the Abyss Defiant, which was a solar auto rifle, and the Void Hand Cannon, the Word of Crota. And again, they're reskins of base Destiny weapons, but they have the sort of hive skins on them, which is really cool. Plus, we had the Oversoul Edict pulse rifle, and this was a faster firing arc pulse, and the Hunger of Crota rocket launcher as well, which was one of the first launchers in Destiny 1 to have tracking on it, so when players were trying to complete the Crota Zen raid and get into LFG groups and things like that, if you didn't have Galahorn, which was absolutely the best weapon to make Crota kneel, then Hunger of Crota was pretty much the second best option. On top of that though, there was the Swordbreaker shotgun, the Song of Yurt machine gun, which was a rapid-fire machine gun right there, and there's also a pulse rifle, the Light of the Abyss. As we've seen with some other reprised raids in Destiny 2, they haven't necessarily brought back the entire lineup of legendary weapons. So it's possible they'll do a similar thing with Crota's End if they do bring it back, and they might even choose to skip weapons like Black Hammer, simply because there is an exotic variant of it. But I thought for some folks, whether it's a nostalgic look back at Crota's End, or indeed an introduction to it if you're a newer Destiny 2 player who never played D1, it's a bit of a quick preview, I suppose, of some of what the raid has to offer. And like I said earlier in the video, I think nostalgia got the better of me, and I just felt like looking back at Crota's End. Of course, taking the opportunity to perhaps introduce it to folks who didn't play D1. And on top of that, it'll be interesting as well to see what changes we see between Destiny 1 and Destiny 2. Encounters in particular will be interesting. But let us know down below, are you excited for a potential return of Crota's End? Or for the opportunity to pick up any of the rewards? Let us know in the comment section. Let's end with a little bit more nostalgia right here. Before making this video, I watched back a video that I put out back in Destiny 1, breaking down all of the key mechanics for Crota's End raid, and that was before they reprised it in Age of Triumph as a sort of prep guide for players, so if you want to check out a little segment of that video, I'll play it at the end. It's certainly strange listening to a video that I made, I think 7.5 years ago, something like that. And of course there's some very 2015, 2016 YouTube music in the background, so you can check a little bit of that out right here if you want to, but if you've enjoyed the video today, a rating below really does help us out. It's by no means confirmed at the moment that Crota's End is returning, but there are some reliable sources that indicate it will be coming back, so by no means this is a promise. And for today, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and otherwise I will catch you guys very soon. So when you come into this room, on the first side you'll have one Annihilator totem on the left and one on the right, with a plate to form the bridge in the center. In order to hold the bridge plate, there will need to be at least one person on each of the totems, as they will enrage if they're left unattended while you form the bridge. In general, to begin with, you want 2 people on each totem and then 2 on the middle plate so that the bridge can form. In order to cross the bridge, you'll need to have a sword relic. After you begin holding the plate for a second, a sword bearer will spawn in the middle room at the back and make his way down to you. As the bridge is forming, you'll need to weaken the knight and then take him down as or when the bridge is formed, which will drop a sword that the first player can use to cross the bridge. In my team, I go across first right here, and once you're across, you'll find a gatekeeper which you'll need to kill with the sword. These are entirely invincible to normal weapons, and one will spawn every time you kill a sword bearer on the other side. The player crossing at the time will need to take him out when they arrive. You'll also need to stay alive while your team works on getting more players across, so it's likely worth sending a Sunsinger or Defender Titan first for survivability. Back on the first side though, we now have 5 players, and one of the players holding down a totem will need to rotate to the center plate to hold the bridge and help the second player across. Bear in mind that you'll still need at least 1 player on each totem for this to work. Once the second player has crossed though, you'll have to repeat the process until you have 3 players on the other side of the bridge. At this point, we can start controlling the bridge from this side. So I'm on the left totem right here, we have a player on the right totem and one holding the bridge plate in the middle. Teammates on the first side can now step off and focus on getting swords to cross over as quickly as possible. You'll still have invincible gatekeepers spawning on the second side, so a combination of jumping and using blinding grenades if possible will make him less of a threat. Either way, you can now get the whole team across, and once this happens, you no longer need to hold the plates down. At this point, you need to kill the adds coming from left, right and center, until finally an ogre will spawn from the far left and right, and once these have been taken down, you will clear the encounter. Like I said, there are going to be some changes here, but since so few people really understand this encounter, knowing this stuff will be beneficial.